So today we are making chocolate rolls, and these will be somewhat similar to cinnamon rolls, but we are actually using some chocolate frosting as the filling. If you'd like to save even more money when you're making this, you can actually make your own frosting. And today we have used a bread machine to make our dough, and I will put a link to a printable recipe for these rolls. If you don't have a bread machine, you can definitely make this by hand. You will just have to mix everything together and let it rise for about an hour. And then you'll want to knead it back down and let it rise for another half hour before you start. So you can see it's a little bit sticky, so I've lightly floured the pan. I'm going to put some flour on my hands as well. If it's too sticky, go ahead and put it in the fridge for a little while, and that should help make it less sticky. So we did a batch that is supposed to fill up our entire pan. So you can see over here, you can make smaller batches, bigger, but that's what we're going with. So we have a large cookie sheet here. It should be about a 16 by 24. So we're going to slowly work on stretching this out. So you can see it's very resistant to stretching. So it's just going to be a slow process of stretching this out. And while you're doing this, you'll want to have the oven preheating to 350. Like I said, if you put this in the fridge a little bit, that may help with some of the stickiness. But the best way I've found to stretch this out is just slow pulls. So we'll get this stretched out and we'll check back. Okay, so now that we've got this all stretched out, so on my cookie sheet I kind of rolled it around the edges to help it hold. It's still trying to come back in a little bit, but that is okay. Like I said, hold it around the edges here. So now that we have this, I am going to take my chocolate frosting, which I have actually put in the microwave for about 15 or 20 seconds just to kind of make it less viscous, easier to spread. If you're doing your frosting, I'd recommend doing it a little bit on the thinner side versus your normal thick frosting that you'd use like for a cake. You can see it's a little bit runny here. So we're just going to spread that on a nice layer over the entire thing here. And then if you haven't already, you will want to have a greased cake pan. If you don't have a nice big one, you can use smaller and just use multiples. So we'll keep going here and get a nice layer. You can see I have a little bit of lumps in here, and that's okay. If you're really picky, you'll want to even that out, but I am not as worried about looks because it will taste good either way. So we'll just keep going and get this layer on here. So normally this would be with cinnamon rolls where you'd put like the cinnamon butter mixture on the inside. And we just decided we really liked the chocolate. We've had that at bakeries quite a bit, and I'm sure they use real chocolate, but just as a time saver, and so we didn't have to get too crazy, we used frosting. So if you are not a big chocolate fan, you could try other kinds of frosting. Another idea would be to use some kind of jam. We were thinking we will try this with some blended raspberries at some point. So that's kind of the nice thing about these rolls is they're really versatile. You can use them in many different flavors. These warm up really well, make good snacks, good breakfast. Well, I guess it depends on what you say is a good breakfast. They taste really good. I don't know how healthy this is for you, but I'm sure with the frosting a lot worse than jam. So get a nice layer going here. I'll try and get a little bit closer to the edges before we roll these up. So for us, the 1 can of frosting can make 2 or 3 batches depending on how thick you put it on there. probably closer to 3. But you can, like I said, put it on a little bit thicker if you want. So now that we have that, I'll just set this off to the side. Then I'm going to start rolling. So we'll unhook it from the edges here and just kind of flip that over. If I can get all the edges unhooked here. And this will definitely not be the prettiest, so if there's some of you who actually want a super pretty one, you'll have to be more careful than I'm being. I am just trying to roll it up the best I can. Trying to be quickest. So if you're picky, you can be more careful. You might want to put more flour on your pan. Mine is sticking a little bit. And this dough can save for a day or 2 in the fridge. If it's longer than that, I would recommend freezing it because it seems like the yeast keeps kind of building, so your dough will build and then it will actually get stickier and harder to work with. So now we're reaching the end. I'm actually going to take this and wrap it over. See, I got a little bit of a hole there, but that's okay. Wrap it over. So I actually had a little bit too much flour on this side, it looks like, because my dough is not sticking. So you'll want this to just stick there, so you might need to mush it together just a little bit, try and get it to stick. Now that we have that, we're going to take our chef's knife and cut it into 1-inch pieces. Now this will squish it a little bit, but you'll get something like that. So not the best swirl, but not terrible. Like I said, I already pre-greased this pan here. So we're going to go ahead and put those in there. If you're worried, if you want bigger rolls, you can leave them wider space and they'll kind of fill out. Otherwise, we kind of just cram them together and they rise up, and then it's a little bit more of a casserole thing, but they still seem to peel apart pretty easily at the end. And like I said, if you make these right away, the dough acts a little bit better, cuts better, it seems like it rolls better, but you can save it. We made another batch that was about 2-day-old dough, so right at the kind of end of its lifespan there, and they still tasted great, they just weren't as pretty, they were a little bit harder to cut, but as you can see as I'm squeezing through, they're getting a little bit less round. So we'll just keep going with that until we fill up our pan here. Okay, now that you have your rolls in the pan, we're going to go ahead and put those in our oven, which is at 350 by now. And we will check on these in about 25 minutes. You can cook them a little bit longer. We'll want them just lightly golden brown around the top. The frosting can make it a little bit harder to see because it'll kind of melt out, but it should be lightly browned around the top. You'll want to make sure you don't touch them because the frosting is all sugar and you will burn yourself. So go ahead and put those in the oven and we'll show you what they look like when they come out.